Our first guest tonight is sort of an Amber Live update. We first met Owen back in February. He's a gay historian of Chicago who has fascinating stories of life in Chicago back in the 60s and 70s. And there's another chapter going on right now, and he's here to share it with us. Come on in, Owen.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
Oh, my goodness, it's always good to see you. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Tell us about the AIDS Garden.
Sure. Well, last time I was on, we talked about the Belmont Rocks.
Yes.
So in an area, a 2.5 acre area adjacent to where the Belmont Rocks were, on June 2nd was the official ribbon cutting. And
all right, remind us again what the Belmont Rocks, what significance that has.
From the early 60s until their demolition in 2003, the Belmont Rocks were a place where Chicago's LGBT community could be themselves. They could have fun. They could hang out and be LGBTQ in the middle of the city in the sunlight at a time when our bars still had darkened windows. So the empowerment that went along with a place like the Belmont Rocks that wasn't south of the city, or it wasn't an island off Chicago, it was right in the middle of town. So it had a hugely significant impact in the building of community and the bonding of a lot of the folks here. So on June 2nd, adjacent to where the Belmont Rocks were, was the ribbon cutting for AIDS Garden Chicago. And it's this beautiful 2.5 acre park right on the lakefront in the area just adjacent to where the Belmont Rocks were. And it already features the 30-foot tall Keith Haring sculpture, self-portrait. And the great thing about the Keith Haring sculpture is that it's going to be visible from Lakeshore Drive. And having it visible from Lakeshore Drive to me, it just highlights the whole fact that we're here and we're not going anywhere, especially in an era of don't say gay, and we're being vaguely, not anymore, threatened with having to go back in the closet and all sorts of other ridiculous things. This is coming at this time. This is a real important statement of not only our past, but also our story and the significance of our story in part of a bigger story. So the efforts to erase our history go much deeper than just don't say gay. That's trying to erase an entire voice, that took so long to be vocalized. So
all right, there's the Keith Haring statue, and there's it's a garden, so there's flowers. I'm sure.
Yes, the plantings are just getting started. Really, all that is going in this year. There's going to be a ginkgo grove, which are all male ginkgo trees, so it won't be the scented ginkgos. There is.
What's the significance of ginkgo? I love the ginkgo trees, but what's the significance for this place?
This, I think that it was just the beauty. I'm not sure of this thing. It's become also the logo of the park. So the nice thing about that too is it provides a lot of. There's a lot of contemplative space there. There's a lot of the original limestone slabs that were part of the Belmont Rocks, repurposed as sort of seating areas in the park.
If those rocks could scream.
It's the beautiful thing about this is, it's sad that the Belmont Rocks are gone, but this is repurposing their significance and their importance to the community in a way that just heightens the importance of queer space even more. And it just, it really feels like the proper ending of a story. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
AIDS Garden Chicago is just so it's not a memorial garden. It's also dedicated to those who were healthcare providers, and those who were caregivers, and those who continue to struggle with HIV, and those who continue to work in the healthcare profession and continue to serve populations. It's become like this, just, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And it's so heartwarming. It was probably like 2 weeks after it had been open, and it was a nice sunny day. And it was just, I was kind of going by on Lakeshore Drive, and to just be able to look over and see people enjoying it for whatever reason, that's what it's all about. And to have it at a place where the LGBTQ community had so many great memories. I mean, for memories from the AIDS era, they weren't memories of a hospital or fluorescent lighting. This is a place where people gathered and had fun. And those moments are so significant, especially when dealing with loss, because those are the moments that over time that really are significant to remember. And those are the moments that make an impact, not the loss, but maybe like the loss of potential,
Yes.
And just
you captured the feeling of the Rocks so well in your voice, Sirens of the Belmont Rocks.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful short play that is, I said earlier, it's like poetry. It's just, I love the delivery. Explain the basis of the play or the structure of the play.
Sure. Well, actually, the main thing that came out of the Belmont Rocks were they were these enormous limestone slabs. Okay, that's what the rocks were composed of. So to dramatize the rocks, a lot of times they weren't connected like that. They were more disjointed. So it almost had its own sort of Greek chorus feel to it, because there were all these different levels of places where almost little stages where people could interact. And I wanted to, I didn't want to capture anything specific about the Belmont Rocks. I wanted to capture voices of the Belmont Rocks that would have the effect of sort of waves coming against the Belmont Rocks. So it's not so much an extended conversation as sort of different movements coming back and forth. And just the that eternal feel is what I wanted to capture about place. And when I think back about the Belmont Rocks too, that whole Greek tragedy theme really lent itself well to the subject matter too, in looking back, because it is a tragedy, and it was a tragedy a lot of times that just, well, clearly, yes, anyway, just something that that for me, the best way to dramatize it was that way. I think if I had to dramatize it in any way that was more interactive, I think it would have been maybe too emotionally difficult, really. I'd
love to see a staged reading of it. That I think that would just.
I wrote it during COVID, so.
Yeah. Oh, but it's very funny. There are some funny, bitchy, catty lines that, yes, gay men do talk that way. And there's also some soul searching and it's just a beautifully written piece. And thank you for sharing that with me and with us.
Oh, sure. And I think I was going back to that too. One of the things that I wanted to capture, not only with that, but with the Belmont Rocks work in general, was that I resented the fact that when we look at LGBTQ history, it tends to be like Stonewall, AIDS, gay marriage, now. So to me, it always seemed like you were standing on a shoreline and just skipping a stone, and the stone was just going like boom, 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 right across our whole history. And it's those things that make the rock skip, yeah, they're important, but they're not the water that it's skipping over. You know, there's a whole lake underneath that, and such a richness of everything. And the fact that AIDS was a horrible disease, but not only that, but it had a very personal face, but it wasn't also completely tragic in that way. It was also like incredibly full of the darkest comedy imaginable. It was a lot of things, and I kind of think it's important to show the complexity of our history, you know, instead of maybe making us more into a simplified version of a very complex story.
Next week, we're going to delve into more Chicago history when we talk to Tracy Baim, who was the founder of the Windy City Times, and she worked with the Chicago Reader and has been there since the 70s,
Yes.
capturing a lot of the gay history. So I'm looking forward to that interview. So, Owen, what do you plan on, or what do you see the future of the AIDS Garden?
I think a lot of it is going to be, there's going to be different social events. Someone talked to me about having like a community like art lesson out there, which just stuff like that, which I would, everything I've heard is very community based, which for me is very consistent with what the Rocks were. It's very consistent with the reason we survived AIDS is because we all came together as a community. So to continue that is a beautiful thing. And I love the fact that it's going out and being someplace together rather than communicating, simply cyberly or whatever via the internet.
So much
Sorry,
for
it sounded really old.
Thank you so much, Owen, for sharing the AIDS Garden with us and more of the history of gay life in Chicago. It's good to see you. We're going to talk again soon, I know.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.